So, it appears that Spider-Man Miles Morales is actually a contentious Spider-Man. If you go online and you look at the conversation surrounding this character, it's quite mixed. Some people like the character, some people don't care about the character, some people love the character. It's all over the place. And so what I wanted to do was I wanted to open up a forum where we could actually talk about Miles in a way that, everyone can share their opinion regardless of what it is that they think. You see, I'm of the mind that if you have an opinion, you ought to be able to share it, and I'm not going to take offense in any case. And I know that there's this one aspect of the conversation where people think that if you don't like the character Miles, you're somewhat, hating the character because of the character's ethnicity. That is a simplistic argument. That's kind of stupid. You're not going to fool me with that nonsense crap. It's what we call a weak argument. Now, I'm saying this because I like Miles Morales, number one, and number two, I liked Miles Morales before I actually discovered his history and his origin story. Basically, I didn't know this was a new-ish Spider-Man character. I already kind of saw the character. I was like, man, I'm vibing with this character. And then eventually found out, oh, so this character was newly created. And according to what the creators actually said about the character is a token character, which is wild that the creators actually openly admitted this in their own, public statements and so on and so forth. If you want to go ahead and look at the history surrounding it, you can go ahead and do that. Miles, according to them, was created because they wanted people who maybe looked like Miles to see themselves in Miles, which is kind of weird. Now, the crazy thing too is, for some of you, you may not necessarily know I'm a comic book normie. In fact, one of the biggest exposures I've had to comic books has been when I started this channel. I was always into the video games for these superheroes, but in regard to the comic history and a lot of the literature, it was you guys or some of you here in this particular platform that kind of started showing me, hey man, you need to go look up these stories, you need to go look up the origin stories of these different characters. And that's where I started buying comic books. In fact, I buy them digital. That's how crazy it is, because some of you are like, oh, he bought digital comics, because I know some of you love to collect comics, and I have a lot of friends who are into the comic scene. So this is basically my orientation. Now, I would love for you to tell me what it is you think about the character. Now, here is what I think about the character so far, even though I found this out. Number one, I still like the character. To me, I don't necessarily think that at the end of the day, this character diminishes Peter Parker. I've always been oriented to seeing a lot of characters of different ethnicities show up in different media. In fact, the very first time I actually saw a black superhero in a movie was in 1999. Some of you are looking like 99. I know some of you Spidey fans who watch the Video Game Fight School channel, you weren't born in 99. It's okay. But this was Blade. I saw the Blade movie, and being a comic book normie, I didn't even know he was a comic book character. I didn't even know he was a Marvel character. I just remember that movie was so impressioned on me in a sense that I really did enjoy the fact that Wesley, good old Wes, Uncle Wes, was getting stuff done, was taking out vampires and all that good stuff. And back then, I went to boarding school, and what we did was whenever we came home, we had to literally watch movies and come back and narrate the entire movies to our friends because, we didn't have any movies all through the time we were in school. So I remember memorizing most of the plot for Blade because I watched it multiple times, and it just basically has stuck with me. Years later, I watched the other Blade movies, and since then, to me, I just was very enamored by the fact that, Blade was so cool. His ethnicity never really bothered me. His ethnicity never really made me feel much better or whatever it is. He was just a solid actor and a solid superhero. And if you continue to look at just the quality of the character, or any superhero character for that matter, I think that's pretty much where you can actually make a very good judgment about the character. In my mind, I think Miles as a character depicted in the Spider-Man games is a decently written character, a decently represented character. I like the way they actually go with a very, much more youthful vibe with him. He and Genki are pretty much very, very, they're a very dynamic duo in my mind. They get the job done in regard to kind of having this, really cool, friendly relationship overall. And I think it's actually pretty interesting that they can actually adapt this character in this framework overall. Here's the problem that we have in today's day and age. Today's day and age, there's been so much in terms of contention when it comes down to, superhero characters, or when it comes down to entertainment and how ethnic representation is a thing. This is a very, very interesting, piece of commentary overall, because everybody's got their own different opinions and so on and so forth. I think the innocence was bliss at the time when I did not know anything about the character, but on knowing, it's like, oh, this is really interesting to see how people are responding and reacting to the character. Also, I've also seen a lot of people express their own concerns, saying that possibly maybe Miles might take the show from Peter in Marvel Spider-Man 2 as a game. Now, I don't necessarily think this is going to be the case. Miles seems to have a minor story, unless of course the developers want to put him in a majority aspect, then they can go ahead and do this. To me, it's not necessarily going to be a problem. I don't care what capacity they want Miles to be in, because the game is actually about both of them. Now, if the game is going to be a Peter-based game, which I think it'll also be too, don't get me wrong, Miles is going to play a conscience for Peter Parker. I think that's pretty much what it's going to be. Peter needs to have a conscience, and Miles is basically going to take that role because he's going to be in cahoots with the Venom. And I don't know if you want MJ. Many of you are saying this, but you're also the people who didn't like MJ and her mission in the first Spider-Man game. I mean, I don't know. I was not really a big fan of that MJ mission myself, but I'd rather have Miles than MJ. I'd rather have Wraith than, MJ, the way they actually, represented her in the game last time in 2018. So this is very interesting. And to be honest, again, like I said, because of where I came from and because of being a normie, I'm sure that other normies like me probably feel the exact same way. And the truth about the matter is, you can't blame anybody. We didn't just sit there and kind of veg on all of the comic history of this superhero in terms of knowing where the character has come from. And now that most of us have known, it's weird, or at least it'll be wild, to go ahead and say, okay, now we know, we're going to now have an animus to a character that we kind of thought was decent and cool when we saw that character being represented in the, different media out there. In fact, the first Into the Spider-Verse movie I actually do like a lot too, which is crazy. I don't know if I'm going to watch the second one. I don't really care much anyways for Spider-Man, but on seeing that first one, I was like, it's actually a very good movie. I like the way they actually did the art style, the way they did a lot of the plot unveiling and so on and so forth. It was quite creative at the end of the day, but it's interesting to just see all of this stuff. This is why I'm a Batman fan, guys. I don't really know how to deal with a lot of the ways, they go ahead and make these characters, or just at least take a mantle and just throw it on one character and so on and so forth. Maybe Batman may not maintain his originality, and maybe if they try to do a swap for Batman, maybe, give another character Batman rather than separate him like Batgirl or Robin or, Nightwing like they've done in the past. Maybe I will have similar, points of view as those who have that point of view towards Miles Morales. But like I said, share your thoughts in the comment section. It's going to be an interesting conversation overall. Let me leave you guys here so you can get typing, and we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.